Hello there, welcome to this new JavaScript arrays tutorial series where we will be learning about arrays. This first video is basically focusing on different ways in creating arrays in JavaScript. I advise that you watch these videos due to the fact that arrays programming is one of the programming paradigms that you will come across when you continue with your career as a programmer or a website developer. So before me, I have the index.html skeleton, which already has a script tag linking to an arrays.js file on my working directory. This is my arrays.js file, and my arrays.js file does not have anything on the content inside of it. My functions.js, it's the file that I was working on that previous functions video. So I'm gonna go to my index.html file and open my live server add-on. I assume that you already know what a live server add-on is based on the previous video on functions that we did. Then my browser is opened. My live server add-on now is opening the index.html file. I'm gonna go back to the arrays.js file. Okay. So on my arrays.js file, I'm gonna first try to bring a definition of what an array is based on the different articles that I've read. So for me to do that, I'm gonna do this. Use the var keyword to declare a variable. The variable name I'm gonna call it cars. Then I'm gonna assign it to a string using a string called BMW, right? And then the closing semicolon. Then I'm gonna do the document.write method for me to print something in the browser. Then inside this method, I'm gonna write a type of, which is the type of cars. This will output the data type of cars on my browser. What data type is cars? And then it shows me that this cars variable has a data type of string. But now if I wrap it into these types of blocks brackets, then I go again and check the data type. Now is no longer saying it's a string, but it's saying it is an object. So arrays are objects, right? In JavaScript, they have a data type of an object similar to the object that you have when you use var. Let me say obj is assigned to using these curly braces, right? The data type contained here is the data type contained here. Both of these are objects, right? So a definition of an array based on the past articles that I've read, they've said that an array is like a variable that has an extended space to store data. Remember that a variable is like a container where you store your data that you want to use later on. So same applies to variables, so to arrays, excuse me. So if you were gonna do variables that contain different types of cars, you were gonna do var car1 is equivalent to, not equivalent, assigned to a string called, let's say, Volvo. Then you have your car you have your variable, then you have your car 2 assigned to a string of let's say Mazda. So you will be writing a lot lines of codes here, but this can be written in one line by merely doing this. Then you have Volvo, then you have Mazda, you have, let's put Mercedes on, Mercedes. Don't know whether my spelling of Mercedes is correct. Then these variables, we take them out. Now you have your array. This is the way of creating an array basically in JavaScript. Now you have your array, cars array that has BMW, Volvo, Mazda, Mercedes. So okay, an array has functions on how to manipulate them, because you can do data structures based on arrays. You can swipe the last array to be the first array, you can swipe it to be the middle, you can make them to be ordered in alphabetical order, and so on. So for you to perform the method arrays method, the first example is if I wanna check the length of the arrays, the cars arrays, how many objects are inside that array. So I'm gonna do cars dot length, right? This will output the length of the array. So we are expecting that a number of 4 be our output. So I'm gonna do like this. I'm gonna store this in a variable. Let me call it LT, then assign it to this method. Then from here, let me take out this type of, then left with document.write. Then I used the LT variable to see what's printed on the browser. Then here it is, 4. The length of an array is 4. So I won't be dwelling much on these methods to manipulate arrays, due to the fact that I gave you my 6 resources of learning JavaScript as a self-taught programmer. The DevDocs and the Mozilla Firefox has these methods, a list of them, in a sense that after me doing this example, doing the other ones will be a waste of time for you. So you can go to those DevDocs and refer to the different types of methods available for manipulating these arrays. So this tutorial is focused on creating different ways of creating arrays. So let me continue. This is the first way of creating arrays. The second one is using the new keyword, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a different array called brands. I'm gonna say var brands is assigned to new what? A new array. So this new array contain brand number 1, Adidas, brand number 2, let's say Puma, brand number 3, let's say Nike, right? So arrays have these what we call indexing. They are auto-indexed. For someone to access the value of to access Adidas and Puma and Nike, you're gonna access it using the indexing. Although now we will do a little bit of that, but in the future upcoming videos we will be doing a lot of that. So you have your new array. This array has been created. For me to access Adidas, I'm gonna use the index of 0, because JavaScript has a 0 index. It starts from 0 then up to positive, I don't know, positive what, I'm tempted to say infinite. Okay, so to access number 1, you use 0 due to the effect of 0 indexing. Therefore, I wanna document.write brands, then use these big brackets. Then if I say 0, the value I'm gonna get on my browser is Adidas. Go there, it's Adidas, right? So for me, I want to give you a little bit of challenge to show you that JavaScript, you can do a lot of things with JavaScript. It's like a free reign programming language, like where you can do things in a different way. If I wanted to access the last value of an array, but I do not know what is the index number of that array. For me to explain what I'm talking about is that, okay, now I have the brands array here, then I want to access the last array, which I know now it's on the index of 2 due to the fact that I can see it. But if you want to make your code dynamically where the user inputs data and that data is stored on the array, you don't know what's the last value of it. So this can be done. You remember when we use the cars.length, it gave us an output of 4. But for the fact that JavaScript has 0 indexing, if you take this length, you say -1, it will give you 3 here, which is the index of the last value here, which is Mercedes, right? If I'm gonna do, let me say cars, then inside here I put LT, right? LT is cars.length and -1, which is equivalent to 3. Let me go to your browser and see what it prints. It prints Mercedes. Let's assume that I add something on this array. Okay, let me add let me say VW for Volkswagen. Then I go back, it outputs VW. So based on this, you can create an algorithm that takes the last inputted value of an array to be the first indexed something. Maybe it's a blog post or something. So yeah, I wanted to show you that. You can also store arrays on objects. How can you do that? Oh, arrays are already objects. So by me saying objects, I mean when you do use those curly braces. Let me say var, let me say some obj for object. Then I'm gonna assign it to these objects. These are the objects you are familiar with. Then let me say var 1. This is property 1. Let me say property 1. And then I have arr for array. Then I'm gonna store the numbers. You can store any data type inside the array. If I didn't mention that already, you can store any data type inside the array, and you can store different data types. You can have a string, a boolean, a number, an integer, and stuff, all of that. So here I'm gonna put numbers. I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5. So for me to access all of these arrays, I have to use the dot syntax, obj dot, then access the property. If I say this var, which will output the arrays, it's gonna give me that list. Wait, oh, I accessed the wrong one. I want to access the array, not the var property. The array, it's gonna give me that list 1 2 3 4 5. Then if I wanted to access an array for the index value of 0, it's obj, which is my object, then dot arr property, then I'll put this 0 inside here. I'm expecting 1 to be my output. Then here it is, 1. Awesome, amazing. Ooh, that's amazing. Another way you can do this to create an array, or for you guys who might comment saying I'm doing things so slowly and stuff, this is due to the fact that this channel has been created to explain things regarding JavaScript and give people tips and tricks on different ways of doing something, so that when they come up with their own algorithm and stuff, they might be able to know that there are different ways of creating something in JavaScript. That's the purpose of this YouTube channel, not for me to show you a step-by-step things which when you are supposed to do the project yourself, you are not able to know what to start. This is just to equip people to be able to learn things on their spare time basis without referring to any of the tutorials online or taking any extra courses. So the indexing are basically called object keys in JavaScript. So if you wanna access, you wanna just check the way in which the indexing is structured, you're gonna use this method object dot keys, then keys of which object. I told you arrays are object. Let us use the brands object. Okay, let me store this on a variable called t. Var t, assign it to this object, then document.write t, then go to my browser and see start from 0 1 2. Remember, JavaScript is 0 index, right? Then if I wanna limit the length, of my arrays, I'm gonna have to assign the length of that arrays as a constant, or you can assign it using the var keyword, but basically it's like you are telling it to be a constant until you change that variable value. So let's say I want the cars variable, this cars array to contain only 2 cars, which is BMW and Volvo. Like it can only store 2 values. Maybe you wanna store a binary, a 0 or 1, or a male or a female and stuff. So you are limiting the number of inputs that can be there. Let me show what I'm trying to explain here. Let me say from this document.write and say cars, then I go to the browser, it outputs BMW, Volvo, Mercedes, Mazda and VW. If I'm gonna do the cars dot length method, assign it to 2. Then if I have assigned it to 2, I go to my browser, only 2 elements are printed on the browser, BMW and Volvo. But that does not by default mean that the other elements does not exist. For me to show you, if I'm gonna use the object.keys, if the other elements didn't exist by me doing this, I would have only 0 and 1 for these 2 elements. But I'm gonna have an element from 0 to 4. Let me say keys, then I say cars, then print out these variable here t, go to my browser. It shows that this element exists, but these cars.length have limited the number of elements to be output on the browser. Therefore, we have different types of arrays. For those who are doing linear programming, these are the arrays that they usually use, the vectors and scalars. So it's a 2D array. So what I'm gonna do is, 2D arrays are part of multi-dimensional arrays. So what I'm gonna do is to say, let me say var 2D assigned to an array. Basically, this usually people call it an array of arrays. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do an array also here, which is an array containing 1, let's say 2, say 3. Then I'm gonna create another array here, continue here, there's 4, 5, 6. This basically it makes a grid. This here, it makes a grid. Then okay, then for me to access the arrays, okay, this line of arrays, this line 17 has an indexing value of 1. If I'm gonna say 2D and say not 1, 0 basically, and then say 0, go to my browser, it gives me this 1, 2, 3. If I want to access the element 2, I'm gonna use also this, put 1 here, then go to my browser, it outputs 2. These are basically rows and columns. These are basically rows and columns, yeah. So you can have also an array based, you start with an empty array. When you start with an empty array, then you put inside of it elements using the push method. Let's say I wanna create a table that has multiples of 2 and okay, let me just do that and stop trying to explain that. Let me say values assigned to an empty array. Then underneath I'm gonna have 4. I wanna loop those multiples, so I'm gonna use the for loop for variable. I'm gonna call it variable x, assign it to an initial value of 0. Then I'm gonna say x, when x less than let me say 9. Okay, I want it to iterate, increment the value of x, so this loop here, I'm gonna use it to say values, which refers to the array dot push. This is what will take this element inside here and push it into that array. So this push method, I'm gonna say push these arrays. Okay, the first one I'm gonna say it's to multiply by the x value, which will be from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Then the second one, I want to say 2 to the power of x, right? Okay. From this loop here, we can be able to access the elements inside the values. Now the values object has arrays inside of it. Then I'm gonna say values and see what's on the browser. Okay, we are back again. Let's see. 0, which is 2. Okay. 0, 1, 2, 2, 4, 4, 6, 8, 8, 16, and up to 256. So this is how you can create like the tables array. If you don't understand this here, it's fine. It's based on it's for people who will probably work with vectors in their programming, maybe a game developer, or people on that category, game developers that works with animators, those that work with vectors and scalars a lot. So you have seen from this part that you can create an array from you can start with an empty array and use this push method to input values inside that array and use them as if you have just put the data by default here and saying like this. Okay, so another thing that we can do is to create an array from an object. Let me say lm for elements assigned to, like this, creating an array based on this object. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna have and so you have an ID of 12, then you have a name of Robert. Hey, Robert. Then you have let's say a value of 55, right? Then on top of this, I want to create an empty array. I'm gonna call it an array up because it's an object also. Then this is an empty array. then I have object. Now if I'm gonna do this, saying arr ob, the array is empty, does not have any element, but the moment I assign this arrob for an index of 0, I'm gonna assign it to this object here, which is lm. Then I'm gonna go to my browser. It prints object. You saw that it outputs object. Then I gave it an index of 0, right? But this has not changed. The fact that this array has been created from this object, and object we access properties by using the dot keyword, right? So if I'm gonna do a dot here to access those properties, I'm gonna say name, which I'm expecting Robert to be my output. There it is, there, out there. Awesome. Okay, for the purposes of your knowledge, I'm gonna advise you to go and browse on whatever browser engine you are using, whatever search engine you are using, to browse how to clone an array, because that's very important also in working with arrays. So what we are going to look at now is gonna how to pass in the array's element as an argument on a function. So we're gonna have let me call this variable y. Let me store this as y0 or yo. I don't know, it's y0. Okay, let me store this as y1. Okay, let me say it's y2, right? Then I'm gonna have a function that has a name of par for our parameters. Then I'm gonna have it to have parameters of pa1 for parameter 1, pa2 for parameter 2, pa3 for parameter 3, right? Then what I'm gonna do is to say this method, when I call it, I want it to say document dot write pa1 concatenated with let me just do this to have some spacing here, pa2, okay, then pa then pa3, right? So I'm gonna pass this as an argument by saying this function par, then my arguments. What are my arguments? It's y with an index of 0, y with an index of 1, and y with an index of 2. So this is it. You can also do this here by looping over the elements inside here. You're gonna deal with looping over an array on the next upcoming tutorials. So let me comment this document.write out, because we have the document.write inside here. Go to my browser, refresh. What's happening? Oh, I'm gonna fix this to be PA3. Yeah, jeez. Okay, PA3. That was my mistake there. Set output y0, y1, y2. Let me try and change this to say array L1, so that someone can see what I'm talking about. Now it's say array L1, then y1, y2. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is to do something so bad. Array of pointers. Gonna do array of pointers in JavaScript. So if you worked with C or C++, you will be familiar with this array of pointers. So what I'm gonna do is to declare a variable called let me just try to stick with the terminologies that most of the programmers use to teach people. Let me call it foo. Assign it to an empty array, right? Then I'm gonna do this. By me doing this, saying tab here, it jumps to a line equivalent to like same row with I don't know whether to say same row, but it aligns with foo here, meaning that if I do saying L like this, automatically there is this line showing here. This is the same as doing var, like saying var L, but I'm gonna omit this var and do like this. This is also a variable. Then I'm gonna assign it to an object of digit. Let me say has a value of 1 property, right? Then I'm gonna have bar, which will be my function like this. Remember from our functions tutorial, right? We said if you have a variable name, then you say function, you don't give it a name, automatically the function name becomes the variable name, right? This is what will happen here. For us to call this function, we're gonna call function bar, like this, bar function. If you haven't watched that, you are confused and you haven't watched that functions video, you might watch it. You might I will advise that you watch it, but if you want to, if you don't want to, don't watch it. Yeah. So from here, I'm gonna use the this keyword. Like I'm gonna say this dot let me say test, because I want to test this. This dot test assigned to this object, the object called L. Then I'm gonna use the foo dot push. Remember, dot push, same as when you have an empty array and you want to put element inside that what do I call it? Element inside that array. You're gonna use the push. Then you say this. I'm not gonna tell you what this does. I want you to give it a guess, because we did something like this on our previous lines of codes. So you have your few.push this. Then now if I wanna create an instance of my bar function here, then what I'm gonna do is to say, let me assign it to bar inst. For bar instance, let me say new bar. Then this is how I create an instance, right? This is a new instance, right? Then if I want to change, I want a different value for digit here, dig, I will need to have this saying array for this object. Then I say dot dig, not values, dot dig equivalent to 2, right? Then I will console.log this one. Let's see. I'm gonna say console.log. Then I'm gonna call foo, which is my array, right? Foo indexing key object of 0. Then this dot test is assigned to lem, right? Then I'm gonna say dot test. Then I'm gonna say dot dig, like this. So let me first comment this out. My output is supposed to be 1, right, on the console.log. I'm gonna go and press F12. My output here, it is 1, right? But now I wanna change the value to 2, in a sense that my output is gonna be 2 now. Here you see it's 2. This is how you do an array of pointers. I don't know whether this was too advanced for some of you guys, but if you have questions, feel free to ask me on that comment section underneath there. Yes, yeah. Cheers.